How are you guys doing today? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege, here today on a Friday, January 10th, getting just a day away from the start of the NFL wildcard round. We've had already a couple playoff games if you guys have been following the college football playoff, which is set to continue tonight. It should be another great game. But in today's episode, we're going to focus on mainly all surrounding the NFL with a couple previews here of the wild card round, mostly on Sunday. Then we're going to get to what we didn't get to yesterday, talking about the most important players on each playoff team. We did the AFC yesterday, and now we're going to get to the NFC teams today, as well as giving our 2 cents on the situation in Atlanta with Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. Their general manager saying today that they wouldn't mind having Kirk Cousins there as their backup, and we're just going to discuss whether or not we agree and maybe some alternative options for Kirk Cousins as well. But all of that is coming up on today's show, so make sure to stick around. But before we jump into all these previews, I'd like to remind you guys that you guys do have the opportunity to be a part of our live shows. If you guys have any questions, comments, or just any opinions you'd like to share during these live shows, please don't hesitate to do so. Your input and insight is always a great addition to the show, and we always appreciate your guys' perspective to get us to maybe think of other things that we didn't think of before during these live shows. So if you want to make it absolutely sure that your message stands out and gets featured on any of the live shows, please use the new Super Chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat, and this way it guarantees that your message not only gets on the air, but that we're able to read it and, say it out loud and take the conversation maybe in a different direction. So go ahead, let us know what you're thinking, hit the Super Chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as exciting as possible. We always appreciate and always love knowing what you guys are thinking during these live shows, so please get involved with the shows. But now we can start jumping into some of the breakdowns of these games, right? I like to push it off to as close as possible to the weekend, just in case there's any, last-second injury news or anything like that. So we're going to start off with the first game that we have on Sunday between the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. Last time the Denver Broncos were in the playoffs, they were raising the Lombardi Trophy with Von Miller as their Super Bowl MVP. And now 8 years later, he's hosting his former team in Buffalo in the first round of the playoffs, right? Von Miller's new team, the Buffalo Bills, enter as the number 2 seed after winning the AFC East for the 5th straight time. And also, Josh Allen, also the main focus of the Bills, having an MVP caliber season. Oddly enough, in a season where we look back to like July, June, or something like that, heading into, the real portion of mini camps and things like that. After we found out everything about Stephon Diggs, if we would have gone back there and told everybody that the Buffalo Bills would be the number 2 seed, a lot of people would have a problem believing that. And I think it's a testament to where the Buffalo Bills are as of right now as a team and the kind of season that they've had as well. But similarly, talking about beating the odds, the Denver Broncos also had nobody really believe in them, that they'd even be close to the playoffs with the whole Russell Wilson situation, with, everything about this roster not really giving you too much optimism that they were going to be in the playoffs with a rookie quarterback. Courtland Sutton, there was a point in time in the offseason where maybe they were considering trading him, where there was a lot of talk about him, and you were really considering what kind of year this would be for the Broncos, whether or not they would really embrace, rebuilding or would really give this a shot. And they really did. And we found out a lot about them. We found out a lot about their defense and how good it was. Also about the constant improvement of Bo Nix and, the polishness of his game has really shown out this year. And also, credit to Sean Payton for the job that he's done coaching this team. He returns to the playoffs for the first time since 2020. And compared to the Bills, this is the Bills' 6th time making the playoffs as well. But now they're facing off against each other in the first round of the playoffs. And Regarding any injury news, I haven't seen any major news regarding, each of the squads. It looks like both of them are two of the healthiest teams going into the playoffs, other than maybe like the long-term injuries like Alex Singleton to the Denver Broncos, and that was ages ago. Really, most of the players on both sides are going to be playing, so that's always good, right? You don't like to go into a game knowing that one team's already, down, or they're already like back a couple steps because they're missing a wide receiver or an offensive lineman or something like that. So we're really going to see both teams' best shot at trying to go out and win this game. And speaking about winning this game, one thing that I'd like to see from each of these teams in order to get that victory is starting with the Buffalo Bills. I want to see them, like I kind of alluded to yesterday when we talked about their most important players. I mentioned James Cook. I want to see them run the ball early and often, right? Because I think when we go into the playoffs, everything is about the best players, right? Everything is about the quarterbacks and how they play and how they elevate their teams. But it's just as much as it is the quarterbacks as it is, complementary play, what everybody else is doing to make sure they execute on their job so they can, go out there and get a victory. And I think for the Bills, something that they need to do is run the ball. Obviously a lot, because not only, are the Denver Broncos very good, their secondary is very good, their pass rush is very good, but I just don't want to let their pass rush kind of dictate the pace of this game. I don't want them to speed up Josh Allen. I don't want them to disrupt things early and often. I want the Bills, if I'm part of the Bills, I'd want them to go out there and have them dictate the game, control the pace and everything like that, especially at home, right? You have that advantage. You have everybody on your side. Go out there and control the game through the running game. And I think that if they're able to do that at an efficient pace going forward, I think it not only kind of shakes off any playoff anxiousness that players might have, but also if you're successful with it, you start wearing this defense down early and often, and then by the third quarter, fourth quarter, they might not be getting off the ball that quickly. They might be feeling the effects of having to try and tackle Josh Allen or James Cook or Ray Davis that they, circle in. Also, Ty Johnson. That's the kind of luxury the Bills have with multiple running backs. So they have the personnel. I don't think they need to go out there and throw the ball to kind of prove a point, like they're not scared of the Broncos secondary or anything like that. If that's something that's their strength, I think a counter move would just be looking somewhere else and also sprinkling some throws there here or there. They're very capable of doing that. But I think to me, the number one thing to do would be to run the ball and kind of have those pass rushers just think twice about, really committing to a pass play, right? And just rushing the passer. Make them earn it, right? Make them earn the right to rush the passer. So that's what I want to see from the Bills. And then on the other side, for the Broncos, similarly, on the defensive side of the ball for them, to try and keep Josh Allen in the pocket, trying to make him be as accurate and as mistake-free as possible, right? Make him almost like second guess what he's really about to do, right? If you could keep him in the pocket and he's really not having any success kind of extending plays, then he's going to have to sit in there and try to dissect this team that, again, like I mentioned, has a very good secondary and they have a very good pass rush. So if you keep him in the same general area, not only is it going to help your pass rush, but also you're going to force him to be extremely accurate, and the margin of error for him really becomes a lot smaller, right? And that way you're kind of dictating what the offense is trying to do, right? You're getting them to play to your, to your strengths rather than the other way around. If you have Josh extending the play, running all over the place, and really throwing everything off, then guys get open, the pass rush gets tired, the secondary guys get tired, and he usually is successful more often than not doing that. So I think the Broncos really need to focus in on that, and that leads me into the matchups, right? Talking about keeping Josh in the pocket, one of the biggest matchups that will dictate this game is going to be the Bills' offensive line going up against this pass rush, right? Everybody's talking about it for a reason, right? It's gonna be probably the biggest decider in this game. You have the Broncos, who lead the NFL with 62 sacks, and the Bills' offensive line that has only allowed 14 sacks, which is the lowest in the NFL since 2009. So winning those battles, not over pursuing, on the outside, and then having Josh just step up and run for like another 15 yards. All of that's going to be important. The details in that are going to be fundamental. So if the Broncos can kind of disrupt that, throw Josh off his rhythm, that's going to be huge for them. Then I briefly talked about this before, the Bills' defense, and how often they play zone going up against the Broncos' offense, right? Their weapons that they have on that side of the ball. How can, one, the Bills' defense sort of confuse Bo Nix, maybe show him a look early on, change it completely once the ball is snapped, maybe he thinks it's single high, then you bring another guy back there, or it's man and you kind of disguise it as zone. Those sort of things, really disguising what kind of zone you're in, could be beneficial against a rookie quarterback again. And I mean, if the Broncos are able to also decipher on it and, kind of pick it apart, then you force the Bills, again, to kind of play to your hand and try to match it with you rather than you figuring out what they're trying to do, right? So I think if the Broncos and Bo Nix aren't really confused by any zone coverages or are successful kind of reading it, that'll be a huge point in this game as well. And kind of similarly with how I mentioned with the Broncos trying to keep Josh Allen in the pocket, same thing. If the Bills can keep Bo Nix in the pocket with A.J. Epinesa, Von Miller, Ed Oliver, it takes away a pretty significant part of his game. The running aspect of it, how athletic he is. He uses that a lot. So if you can take that away, then his margin of error is very, very small. So those are all the keys to kind of lead us into a direction of picking a winner. And at the end of the day, I just decided to go with the Bills because I think people start to forget how good the Bills are at running the ball. Josh and all the crazy throws that he makes and their passing game with Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, and Khalil Shakir is great, but running the ball with 3 running backs that they cycle in routinely, and Josh Allen as well, who's huge, is not an easy task for anybody. And that's going to be like a 12-round boxing match, right? If you're trying to tackle those guys throughout the duration of 60 minutes, it gets hard. So I think they also have that aspect of their game that they could add to it. And I just feel like the Broncos going into hostile environment in a area where they haven't been to, obviously, for a long time with a rookie quarterback, I just feel like they have to play so perfect that I just don't see them not throwing like a turnover or costly penalties or something like that. And it just comes with the inexperience. So I'm going to go with the safe pick and go with the Buffalo Bills. I think they get it done at home and they'll be moving on to the next round. But that's only the first game we're going to talk about, right? We got a couple more on the Sunday slate. Well, I'll also save the Monday game for obviously next Monday when we preview that. So the next game we have coming up here is arguably one of the most entertaining ones between the Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. They play once again after the Eagles won in Week 1. The Packers try to surprise everybody with another upset in the first round. We'll decide if they're going to be able to do it when we return after this break.